I'm going to come up with an original story fitting Joseph Campbell's hero's journey plot structure and explain along the way how you can also use the hero's journey to write stories that fulfill readers' subconscious expectations and keep them glued to the page. The story that I come up with in this video, I still have no idea what it's going to be about. I'm just going to brainstorm it off the cuff as I film it and hopefully put together something that is fun and also fits the structure of the hero's journey. This is not me taking a story that I have previously developed and just filming a video about it. I literally have no idea what this story is going to be about, and I'm just going to brainstorm it as we go. But before we get started, here's a little bit of background on the hero's journey. If you're not familiar with it, the hero's journey is a universal story pattern popularized by Joseph Campbell that appears in a ton of stories across cultures and across history. It follows a character's transformation from an ordinary person and into a hero through a bunch of different trials and challenges that they have to go through in order to actually transform. Because it's found across so many stories, it resonates with people on a very deep level and is a very powerful story structure to follow when plotting out your own stories. There are a ton of movies and stories that follow the structure. One of my favorite examples that I use a lot on the channel is the Disney movie Moana. Star Wars is also a fantastic example, as is The Wizard of Oz. I just love the hero's journey because I love stories about characters that change a lot over the course of the story and that take on really big challenges and go through experiences that fully transform them from the beginning to the end of the story. This is my favorite story structure of all time, and so I'm very excited to come up with an example of this story structure and explain each stage to you. Please prepare yourself for some chaos. I am a very organic brainstormer and always go back and move things around and change things and come up with kind of funky ideas. So if something doesn't quite make sense in the moment, just bear with me. Hopefully I will come up with something that is imperfect but still holds together as a sort of story. And this will be a nice look into the inner workings of my brain as an author who uses this story structure all the time. So the hero's journey famously has 12 stages, and those stages are arranged usually on kind of the form of a circle. Like, the hero starts at the top of the circle, and then they go on a circular transformational journey, and then they end again kind of in the same place that they started, but they have transformed and they're a different person. So at the beginning of the story, they start in their ordinary world, and we're kind of at the top of the circle, and then as you go down, they like cross over into this like new world, which is like their transformational world. They go through that world, then they come back into their ordinary world at the end, but that transformation makes them different. So right up off the top, I typically want to have a general idea of what the story is going to be about and what kind of journey that I want the character to go on before I start plotting out specific story steps. So usually I try to come up with like a character, and I'm doing this a little out of order because when I have a book idea that I'm planning, I usually have a concept and a premise before I even get to this stage. So now we're really just like coming up with a concept, a character, a premise, and everything all at the same time. I'm gonna add character want, obstacle, and then like conflict, just kind of fleshing out some of the things that we want to know. So let's start with premise. So what would be some fun premises? A lot of heroes' journeys follow a character on some kind of quest. So they're trying to find something, they're trying to get something. Not always, but this is a pretty easy way to do it. Like in Moana, she has to go sail across the ocean to restore the heart of Te Fiti. That is her quest. In The Wizard of Oz, she gets brought over into Oz and she, like unexpectedly, and then has to go find the Wizard of Oz to be sent home. In Star Wars, Luke is given the message in the droid, and is told to go find Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? No, I'm getting all of that mixed up. He has to go find Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then it's like, you know, help us, like, Kenobi, you're our only hope, and then they have to go find Princess Leia. Like, he gets called to a higher adventure. I really need to go watch Star Wars again. But there's generally some sort of thing that drives the character through the story, something that they need to accomplish, or something that they need to find. So let's think of some things. What are some zany quests? We can be like, I don't know, has to go like find coffee creamer, or goes on a quest to go get more coffee creamer, like leaves the house because they ran out, and crazy things happen. That's not a very powerful one. The chosen one is a pretty popular trope in this. So like we can say like chosen one, maybe like an unlikely chosen one. What would be some funny chosen ones? Like we can have like, I don't know, a guy who lives in a village who does not want to be the chosen one. Maybe they need to like have a chosen one to go and, I don't know, defeat like a big dragon. Let's keep it simple. Like a dragon on the edge of the kingdom. Okay, yeah, let's say okay, here. How about we have, in kind of like a Beowulfy world, we have someone, like there's a dragon or a giant. No, what kind of creature do we want? We could do like well, dragons are kind of over, well, all of it. This is a story that's been told before. Okay, let's do a giant who is terrorizing, right? A village. They need someone to go and stop the giant. So they choose, they need someone to stop, right? To stop the giant. Maybe they need someone that like is going to be strong enough to stop the giant. Maybe nobody, like everybody that they have sent out there already hasn't. No, because if everybody that they've sent there already hasn't come back, then that, hold on, I have to think. Okay, they need someone to stop the giant, but no one wants to go. So they choose someone out of a hat. Okay, let's say they get all Hunger Games with it. Out of a hat and make it a big to-do. And they choose a random, like, lazy villager who really does not want to go. Now, this doesn't totally make sense because, like, why wouldn't they choose their best warriors? It's got to be either because those warriors have already gone and failed, or, like, they're fighting a big war. Maybe big war and people, like, the best warriors are not there. Or, okay, that doesn't totally make sense. So how about they've already sent their best warriors, and one of them came back as did not, or like got turned into a drumstick. Then the other one came back and lived to tell the tale, and the giant basically just said that, like, he let that one live, but if they send anybody else, that the giant's just gonna kill them all. Oh, okay, here we go. Never mind. I came up with a better idea. So the giant, the other one came back and lived to tell the tale, to deliver the message that the giant would like one human sacrifice per month, or else the giant will come in and kill everybody. So there was a giant war on giant, like this is all backstory. There was a giant war on giant killed everyone, did not leave. So the village is like, okay, crap. We're also at war with these other people. We have to just like appease the giant until our big army comes home, let's say. Or maybe they're just like a tiny village and they just need to appease the giant in general. So the village, yeah, let's get rid of the army idea. The village has to appease the giant. So every month they have a reaping. They have a reaping and choose one brave man and woman for the honor of representing the tiny village and being sacrificed to the giant. So that's our world right now. So our character gets chosen to be eaten by the giant. Okay, that's our premise. That's typically what I go into this with, is like kind of an idea like that I have, and then I try to create a hero's journey out of it. So now we have to figure out who our character is. So our character is a lazy, let's say like 19-year-olds. I'm thinking like kind of like Hiccup and like kind of like Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon. So like scrawny and sarcastic, who just like mouths off to people all the time. He wants to not get eaten by the giant, to escape from the giant and not be eaten, like, you know, everyone would. The obstacle is going to be the giant, and the village. So the conflict, obviously, is him trying to escape, and then the giant and the village trying to sacrifice him. Now let's get into the hero's journey. So the first stage of the hero's journey is called the ordinary world. And this is essentially where you set up your character and introduce the readers or viewers, if you're watching a movie or writing a movie, to who this person is before the hero's journey. So you want to introduce your hero's normal life. You want to provide a baseline to show how extraordinary their journey will be, and just like a comparison point to who that person ultimately ends up. So the hero may feel out of place, dissatisfied, or longing for something more. I don't think this character is going to be longing for something more. So let's see what the ordinary world could look like for our guy. Let's give him a name. Let's call him, I want to say Gregory, but I don't know why I keep using that name. I use that in the Garden Gnome story too. I'm also like thinking Jeff, but that's also because I just watched the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes last night. My name's Jeff. This doesn't really matter, but like I always like to have the vibe be right if I'm writing a story. Like the name has to have the right vibe. Let's call him Henry. His name's Henry. So Henry is still not quite the right vibe, but you know, it'll be a placeholder. I usually change my main character's names like 7 times. So Henry is late. I'm picturing this village as like kind of some sort of like fictional medieval village, kind of like in Beowulf. But I don't know enough about history to really be able to color this in much detail. Okay, so Henry lives in this village, and it's like kind of around these like giant mountains and cliffs with really huge caves in them, and it's pretty isolated and far away from everything else, and it's led by some chick who is, I feel like all these villages typically are led by dudes, so this one's led by a girl, and she is disciplined but fair, because also in a lot of these movies, as a complete aside, a lot of the women who run villages or societies in general are portrayed to be really nasty and mean, and people call them very nasty and mean just because they act the same way a dude would act, but they get labeled as nasty or mean. So this woman is not nasty and mean. She is tough and she is fair and she's beloved. And Henry is kind of a screw up, okay? So his parents are like not proud of him. Kind of a screw up. He's got like 3 older brothers who are all really, really tough and gorgeous and awesome. And Henry is like lanky and he's late for work. He's trying to like be a blacksmith maybe, and he sucks at it. Like shoeing horses maybe. And he has back problems at 19 because he doesn't have good posture when shoeing horses. He like slumps over and he puts all the weight in his back, and that has made him develop back problems. So he complains about his back problems all the time. And his parents are like, what are we gonna do with Henry? But Henry, he loves animals, and he's like kind of a sensitive soul, and he's very understanding of people, and he's very likable, or at least sympathetic, even though he's out there trying his best, and he just doesn't really feel like anyone understands him, but he also just doesn't really know who he is. Okay. And he's a coward. He is not brave. Maybe he gets bullied and he just lets people beat him up, or he has friends that are like, let's go swimming in the river. And he's just standing on the outside being like, do you know how many people drown in the river every year? That's really unsafe. Like, he's not daring, not brave. And I feel like this is going to be important. Okay, so let's move on. The next stage of the hero's journey is the call to adventure, when like something happens to this hero. So the hero is presented with a challenge, a problem, or adventure that disrupts their ordinary world. And this call invites them to undertake a quest. In our story of poor Henry and the sacrifice, I'm going to like make the text in green so we can tell what's green and what's not. So this is, oops, I just highlighted it. Okay, do this. Let's see if we can turn this green. Henry is Henry's name is drawn at their sacrificial reaping to determine who gets sacrificed. Obviously, he does not want to do this. So the refusal of the call is the hero resists or hesitates to accept the call due to fear, insecurity, or a sense of inadequacy. Obviously, he does not feel inadequate. In this particular instance, he just really doesn't want to be eaten by a giant. Which, like, fair. Maybe we can make it more dramatic. Maybe Henry tries to escape and... No, but that doesn't really fit his character at the beginning because he's a little bit of a coward. Like, if someone says, no, that's against the rules, he just won't go. He is a sniveling, like, really pathetic mess, which, like, I don't want to sound judgy. If I were also chosen to be sacrificed to a man-eating giant, I would also be a sniveling, really pathetic mess. But he, like, goes to say goodbye to his family, maybe. Or they're allowed to come see him because now he's, like, I don't know, like in the Hunger Games, how they were, like, taken to the train station and the families have to come say bye to them. Maybe his family has to come say bye to him. And maybe, like, I don't know, they can say something really savage, like, you know, well, at least your life has some kind of purpose now. Wow, their family is mean. Great, so meeting the mentor, crossing the first threshold. So Henry's got to, like, really just kind of accept the possibility or the certainty of his imminent death. Which brings us to the next step of the hero's journey, which is meeting the mentor. And the mentor is typically a character, like, usually in the hero's journey, the hero has to go on a quest to do something, and they're, like, doubting themselves and they're not sure if they can do it, and then the mentor character helps push them over the edge and inspire them and give them the confidence to cross the threshold into the unknown world and embark on this quest. This is a slightly different story because Henry does not have to go on this quest. He is being forced to go on this quest. But the hero's journey still works in stories like that. Like, Katniss has a hero's journey in the Hunger Games, and so this theoretically should work for us too. Maybe after his family comes and is like, you need to accept the certainty of your imminent death, you pathetic little mess, he has somebody else, like maybe he has a friend else comes to see him, and the friend is like, listen, there is a chance that you can survive this. Like, I was friends with the last guy who went in, and the last guy who went in managed to make it all the way back down the hill before, like, and made it to, I don't know, like, maybe there was one guy that got sacrificed to the giant and, like, I don't know, managed to kind of escape back down the hill. And then the village brought him back up there so that the giant could finish the job. I don't know. Or maybe the giant, like, came down and ate him. Or maybe he just, like, died of his injuries after he escaped. And then they replaced him with someone else. Maybe that's, like, kind of a lore and part of the backstory is, like, someone had just escaped. And this friend is like, hey, I know how that guy got out from the giant. He gave me this really super great piece of insight that if you, like, I don't know, sing to the giant, or no, let's say, I don't know, if you make the giant do math, the giant falls asleep. And then you can escape while the giant is sleeping. And there's, like, a trapdoor, or I don't know, maybe the guy came out the way he came. Or he can say, like, there's, like, a secret entrance, and if you can, like, climb up and then our Henry is like, what does it matter? Like, if I come back to the village, they're gonna bring me back to the giant. And then the mentor is like, you have to escape to this, like, fishing, or I don't know, this, like, coastal village up north. Is, let's say, I don't know, 100 miles away. If you can get there, then you'll be able to escape, and then you never have to come back to the village, and you can make a life for yourself there, and you don't have to die. So this friend is kind of like the mentor. Okay, so now we get to the crossing the first threshold. So this is kind of like at the point at the hero's journey where, like, you've kind of done the ordinary world, and then you go into the transformational world on the circle, and so it's where you cross from the ordinary world into the transformational world. Obviously, this is going to be when the village takes Henry, wraps him up in bacon, and hauls him up the mountain. This like visual is just really strong in my head for some reason. He's like crossing the threshold against his will, and then this transformational world is going to be as soon as he enters the giant's cave. All right, so now we get to test allies and enemies, and this is the like first stage, and kind of the longest stage in the hero's journey. Like, there are just a ton of different ways that you can take this. This isn't like a one plot point. This is almost like a chunk of time in your story where your hero meets other characters that can be their friends, where they meet other characters that are their enemies. Like in Moana, when she like meets Maui and then like has to fight the like Kokomora pirates and the giant shiny dude. So there are a bunch of different ways that we can take this story, and we have to kind of decide now which direction we want to take it. We can make the giant evil, and like that would be the most basic option, just like the village said. This would be pretty predictable, but it would, you know, be a good catalyst for what like that giant could be just like one evil that the that Henry has to come up against. And then the rest of the book is like him trying to escape and go to the village like 100 miles away. Another version could be the giant is actually a good guy. Also sort of a predictable plot twist, but at least it's a reversal or a plot twist of some kind. And maybe the giant is, the village has like done some really bad things and he needs the human sacrifices for some reason, or at least, or maybe the giant is like hedging, making the village think that he needs human sacrifices, but actually doesn't want to kill anybody, but he wants to like maintain his image of being really powerful. Or maybe the giant is a lady. Maybe the giant is keeping all of the human sacrifices, not eating them, and is instead like, I don't know, like moon blinking them, kind of like in that movie about the owls. Like he's hypnotizing them to be like workers for him. That was such a creepy movie. I was so scared of that when I was a kid. Depending on the genre, you can also make it, I don't know, we can do like a romance. This could be our romantasy, to have Henry and then the giant, they fall in love with each other. And then maybe the giant just wants like good conversation, or like good conversationalists. And everybody else is so afraid that, but he can't let them go, or else the village is also gonna think that they're weak. Okay, let's do that. That's kind of fun. We're gonna make this a romantasy. So Henry goes into the giant cave, and learns that, okay, the story's kind of shaping up. He goes into the giant cave, thinks he's going to die, but meets the giant who is like, I don't know, gruff, but also like nice and just very lonely. And let's say that the giant is also much younger than Henry thought. And the I don't know, the giant is like, he's kind of a sensitive guy. He doesn't want to kill anybody, but he's kind of jaded because everybody else has thought that he's really evil. So the giant just like goes to introduce himself. And Henry is like surprisingly nice, and Henry really surprises the giant by not being afraid of him, I think. Like they end up chatting and like having kind of, you know, like a bit of flirty banter. Then the giant reveals that like kind of tells Henry what's going on and that he can't let him leave. This is like, you know, Stockholm syndrome. The giant can't let him leave because otherwise the village is going to think that he's weak, and he's really just buying time until like his parents come back. Maybe he's a baby giant, or like not a baby giant, but like, I don't know, like a teen giant, or until his like family comes back. Like he is also kind of like the family screw up like Henry, and like they're both kind of the youngsters. And like the giant's mom said that she would come back for him, but she's never come back, and he's been like alone in this cave, and he's afraid of what happened to his mom. I don't know, maybe that's like too young, but I don't know, if I were a teenager, I'd also be afraid, and like I have this angry village mob that could kill me. So the giant brings Henry to go meet up with all the other people who he like imprisoned. I mean, it is imprisoned, but he kind of had to do it. And he like tried to make the living accommodations as nice as possible. I know this is such a chaotic story. Then Henry meets like, I don't know, another gal who was sacrificed to the giant, who he thought was dead. Maybe they were like childhood friends and they were separated. Maybe this is like, you know, he's making friends because this is like tests allies and enemies. So he like makes an ally in the girl and also with the giant. But we need to have some conflict. We can't have everybody be a friend. So we also have to like make an enemy. One other guy in the group is sort of an asshole, and like bullies everyone. No, because then the giant would like have something to do with that. Maybe, I don't know, we need like some tests and some conflict in this, because if we don't have any tests or conflict, then it's gonna get really boring. Okay, hold on. So enemy, we have one guy who is planning a coup to escape. Okay, but then Henry knows that they need to stay prisoners, so that otherwise the giant's gonna die. And he is starting to like care about the giant, and he like goes over and like hangs out with the giant, and then him and the giant are getting closer. The giant, we need to name the giant. Who's the giant? Henry and Claude, I don't know why the giant's French, are getting closer. It's okay, I can say that because I'm French. Claude teaches him how to bake baguettes, and they have, you know, some sexual tension. All right, so we do that, but then it's starting to be seen that, like, I don't know, let's say that we have the approach to the inmost cave. So hero comes closer to the central ordeal or the heart of the journey. This phase involves preparation, setbacks, and perhaps a deep inner struggle. So I think that the general climax we'll see is going to be like the people from inside the giant's cave escaping and getting back to the village and telling the village that actually the giant is like kind of a softie and not very strong. I don't really know what would have happened to that guy who escaped. Maybe there would be like another twist on it. Like, I don't know, he tried to escape himself by climbing up to the rocks, and then he fell down, and then he got injured falling back down. But then the village turns into an angry mob because they're really angry because they've been played by the giant, and so they create this mob to go and try to kill the giant. And then it's going to be like Henry trying to save his one true love, the giant, and working with the giant to escape together and escape the village. So that will be the general structure of the climax, and then it'll have a happy ending because they're going to be able to escape and they're going to run off to the woods, and then book 2 will be them trying to go to the fishing village or whatever. So with that general structure in mind, we're going to have the I like to kind of plan the climax around the actual climax, like the one that I like to plan the climax around the actual climax where I know they're going to win. So let's say that, like, I don't know, the Claude and Henry like are able to outsmart the mob by being really kind, maybe. Or like by being nice and not violent. Like they are using their strengths that everybody have said that like that makes them weak, but they're using those traits as strengths, smart and kind, and they live. So if that is the case, I think there would be like a pretty great scene where like the mob actually captures Henry. So like the fate climax could be like the mob coming, and Claude and Henry had like planned for like a good escape, like had developed a plan to stop them, but the plan goes horribly wrong, and the mob captures Claude and like takes him away. Maybe they're like, we're gonna execute him and like burn him at the stake inside the village or something like that, something graphic, and they have to like hold him in the village overnight. And they like rescue all of their people, and they are gonna like rescue Henry, and he's like not pressed for charges or anything because they think that he was under the giant's thumb. But Henry is really worried for Claude and doesn't want Claude to die. I don't know how Henry and Claude would kiss, because if Claude is a giant, he could like probably fit Henry in his mouth. But I think it's going to be more like emotional closeness, not so much physical closeness. It's going to be like a very like slow burn, tension-filled romantasy. Can you tell I don't write romantasy? Like this book would not sell very well, I think, to romantasy fans. All right, so with that in mind, the approach to the inmost cave is probably going to include like, we're going to have like the captured people led by that one enemy person escape and blow the whistle on Claude and how he's actually a softie and can easily be killed. There also, now I'm realizing, has to be some kind of reason for why the village would want to kill Claude instead of just saying like, get out of here. Maybe it's just because at this point they're fed up and they want revenge, but why would Claude have to stay there? This is kind of a plot hole that we'd have to figure out. This is a plot hole we'd have to figure out. So let's see, like over here, the reason that Claude needs to stay is because, like his mom went on a quest and told him to wait there, or it's because he's got to like protect a precious resource, or it's not very good. He doesn't have anywhere else to go because like so maybe another village is like hunting giants and he doesn't know where else to go because he doesn't want to be discovered by the other village, maybe. But then why wouldn't this village tell the other village that like the giant hunters to just come and hunt him in the cave? I don't really know if that makes sense either. Unless the villages just don't really talk to each other. And this is kind of, but there should be some sort of trade or something going on. Like they can't be completely disconnected to each other. But this also hasn't been going on for crazy long. I think maybe there've been like 3 people that have been sacrificed to the giant. Like maybe Henry is the 3rd. So potentially like if Claude is waiting for his parents to come back and get him, he wouldn't have been waiting very long. This plot holds a little bit more of a question mark, but maybe if we were drafting the book and as we get more into the outline, we'd be able to discover a more compelling reason why he has to stay. But that's a question we would have to answer. So, yeah, so they blow the whistle on Claude and he's easy to be killed. The village like stages an attack or like plans an attack, or like I don't know, Henry stays behind and he and Claude plan a way to defend. Maybe they kiss because it's like kind of not really, maybe they come close to kissing, like I just did a video on like slow burn romance and kind of how you want to like bring characters close together and far apart and close together and far apart until they finally kiss. This would be a good opportunity for them to like come really, really close and then you bring them really far apart, because then in the climax, like they're definitely not going to kiss if like the angry mob is like coming and tying up Claude. And maybe they're going to tie up Claude and sell him to the people that are like trying to kill giants. I don't know. But the problem with that though is just that why wouldn't the village just call up this other village and tell them like, come and take this giant. Because if that other village hunts giants, they would have a really easy time hunting like a teenage giant. We can make this YA, like we'll age Henry down to like 16-year-old boy, and then Claude will be like a teen giant. I like that. That's cute. Okay, so then that's great. So then they have that, and then the fake climax is like when they have their whole plan to stop them, the plan goes wrong, Claude gets taken away, and then Claude and Henry are actually able to outsmart the mob, Claude escapes, and they kind of run off together. Henry rides a horse off, and Claude just runs because he is a giant and like really fast. So the road back is where the hero like begins the journey home. Oh, this might be a little tricky because in a typical hero's journey, the hero comes home after the journey and goes back to their ordinary life, but they're now a different person. I've kind of gone a little off the rails with this outline because if I've made the village the bad people, then he can't really go home after this. Unless he does kind of what like Hiccup did in How to Train Your Dragon, where he's able to convince the village that giants are nice and that Claude is nice. Okay, let's do that instead. So somehow, I'm not exactly sure how he's going to do it, Henry is able to open the village's eyes up to Claude's humanity, and Claude is able to help save the village, maybe, from another threat. This is then, we'll go back and like figure out some other threats, like things that are threatening the village. Like maybe there's, I don't know, a giant avalanche or like mudslide or like waterfall or something that is threatening this village that is going to kind of erupt at any minute, or volcano, something like that. And maybe during the climax, or maybe that's part of the plan, is that if they're able to open the village's eyes up to the humanity of Claude and show that Claude can help them, then they're not going to kill him. So, like, Henry triggers the natural disaster, and this is showing him being very brave. Brave! And then Claude stops it. Then the village is like, yes, go, Claude, pop off, girl. You are amazing. Would you like to come live in our village? So the road back is not actually like them returning, like Return with the Elixir is them returning after the climax. So reward seizing the sword, like this has to be distributed over the next couple of plot points. So the seizing the sword moment is like where the hero is like, they're kind of like at their lowest low, because this goes horribly wrong. And this is Henry's lowest low after the ordeal. So his reward in seizing the sword is like the thing that gets him out from his lowest low. So he's at his lowest low. Actually, the key here is to make the village realize that Claude isn't evil and is trying to help them. And that is the insight that pulls him up from his lowest low and allows him to like do the road back to the climax. This is not like begins the journey back to the climax or back home. It's back to the climax. The road back is a part of your climax. So this is where Henry kind of tells Claude, like Henry tells Claude the plan, and they form the plan that Henry's gonna go like trigger the natural disaster and Claude's gonna stop it. So then the resurrection is the final big test and the real climax. Henry is able to open up the village's eyes to Claude's humanity, and Claude's able to help save the village from another threat. And Henry is going to trigger that natural disaster and be really brave, because this is his like resurrection as a new, fully transformed hero who is not a coward anymore. He's super brave. He's going to go put himself in the throes of danger to save this person that he really likes and cares about. And then Claude stops it. The village is grateful, and then they accept Claude into their ranks. And then Claude and Henry go back to the ordinary world, let's say. to the ordinary world, and Henry is now a more confident version of himself, and Claude is happy and has people to talk to and is not lonely in his cave anymore, and they're just generally like better, more self-actualized, happier people, and they live happily ever after. Okay, that is our hero's journey. And the village is super happy and accepting of their human to giant romance, and all of that is totally chill because this is a happy ending story. And that is a roughed in idea of how this story would work as a hero's journey. Character does technically get what he wants, but really what Henry wants and is to like escape from the giant and not be eaten and go back home alive, or like nothing ever happened. But what he needs is like to learn to like love and accept himself for his differences, like for being not as strong as his brothers, and like for being more of a sensitive soul and all of that stuff, and to like learn about the strength he has in those. And that's what he gets. He doesn't go home like nothing happened. He actually goes on this story where he learns to love and accept himself. And he learns all about how strong he actually is, even though he's a sensitive person. And he ends up in a much better place than he was at the beginning, because he also like has Claude now, and he's really happy, and he is celebrated by the village because he has saved, you know, other people from being ritually sacrificed to Claude. And then maybe Claude's parents come back and it's like, you know, a big happily ever after thing. Or maybe in book 2, Claude's parents come back and then Claude and Henry have to do long distance. If any of you would like to write the story, be my guest. I'm going to save this and I'm going to upload it to Google Docs. So if you want to go through and like take a look at all the things that I typed while I was filming this, you absolutely can. I have a ton of typos in here, so, you know, I'm not a great talker and typer at the same time. But yeah, that is it for this video on coming up with a story that fits the hero's journey. If you have a second, I would be super grateful if you could like this video and also subscribe to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze, and I'm an award-winning author who makes videos sharing actionable writing tips that help me make my own writing better. And I'm a huge plotter and love to plot out my books, so I also make videos all about plotting and different story structures. So if any of that sounds interesting, I would love it if you could subscribe. I have a bunch of other videos like this planned where I'm going to go through different story structures and come up with silly stories like this one to illustrate what they look like. If you have a story structure that you would like me to do this with, drop a comment down below and let me know what it is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic week, and as always, happy writing.